I'm telling you, these things saved my life today. Welcome back. Now, of course, I have to explain myself. It's been a good 2 weeks, and the reason why is because I would have made it only 1 week if it wasn't for the fact my stomach lining suddenly decided to take a shot at breaking the world record of how many shits I could take in about 4 days. The total count between Monday morning at 7:45 a.m. to, I would say, Friday today at 10 a.m. The total count of shits was 30. I didn't throw up, but I had a splitting headache from Wednesday all the way to Friday. And I'm assuming that's because I shat out all my electrolytes, and because I had managed to get my hands on some Gatorade, that has now gone away, so I suppose my coworkers were correct. But anyway, enough about my health, because that's already as poor as it could get. I am here today because my NovelKeys shipment finally came in today. Look at these beauties. Unfortunately, they don't do 10 packs anymore, but I suppose this gives me a better sample size. But of course, the ones that we are actually excited about is not the Midnight Jade, is not the Olivia, but the NK Cream Tactiles. So let's get this. Everyone already knows what silks are and jades, but no one really knows what the NK Cream Tactile is. I managed to find this when I scrolled onto the NovelKeys one day, and it seems like for whatever reason, no one talked about them. Maybe I caught it exactly when they dropped or something, but if you search up NK Cream Tactile as of October 15th, 2021, I haven't found anything on the Switches, so I might as well take a first impression sort of video first. And then do note, of course, unless if this cream is different, creams require a break-in period of about a month of constant usage, maybe less or more depending on how much you actually do use it. But if that is the case for this Switch, do take this review with a grain of salt, because I haven't broken the Switch. This is a pure first impression review of me getting them out of the box right from the get-go. So without any further ado, let's go. Oh, I see where all the money's going now. This is why you text me twice for these things to get into my state, right? Okay. Okay, I got some new NovelKeys bags. They're opaque, 36 switches. Pretty cool, actually. And this is biodegradable. Alright, the moment of truth. Alright. This looks strangely like the color of my shit that I took the last few days. Okay, change of scenery really quickly, because I wanted to make sure that not only did I not poop myself in my seat, but I also wanted to reposition the microphone, since that was over there on the left and I didn't want it to be, because it actually helps with focusing the camera and, of course, being a direct audio source. But I wanted to point out something, and I'll flash it onto the screen right now. These creams, or cream tactiles, I was initially worried because I thought these were just the blueberries, but just recolored and reskinned. But I'm glad to say, at least I think it is not the case, because even though the travel distance and bottom out is, I think, the same, it is pretty down there. The force is pretty different, with the 65 gram operating force, 75 gram peak, and 95 gram bottom out. This thing's a heavy boy, and the heavy boy is kind of what I'm fearing, in which that I might not like the Switch, because, well, I'm not the biggest fan of heavy Switches, because it kind of reminds me of the time in which that not only did the Blueberry have problems, but also the original T1s that were too light, such as 62 gram T1s. If you put them in a spacebar, they wouldn't return, because I personally had that issue with my KBD75 back in the day. So in terms of the cream tactiles, I'm assuming that they're having it this heavy because they want... I'm assuming maybe the tactility is too large if you were to have any lighter spring, but I suppose that will be an experiment that I'll do later on. But anyway, here is a blueberry, I'm kidding, it's not a blueberry. This is the cream tactile, and I have a blueberry right here, which I'll get to later. But I want to get into the tactility of the Switch first because I haven't pressed it yet, and I want to sort of do it up close like I usually do, so I can gauge how big the tactility is, where the pre and post travel is, and just sort of get a general profile of the Switch, because yet again, I need to reiterate, this is a first impressions video. So, okay, so here we are. Looks like the shit that I just took, and I'm going to slowly and incrementally press onto the stem until it gives way. So, here we go. Okay, so we have a very minimal pre-travel here. Okay, I'm gonna slowly press inward. Oh wow, that is a very large bump. And let's see how fast it springs my finger back up. Wow. Yeah, that's tactile. That is indeed tactile, but as I feared, it is pretty heavy. Although, I'm assuming that because it has such a heavy bottom out, maybe this is a tactile Switch made for those who don't bottom out when they type. Could be. But yeah, here is the tactile bump. Pretty significant, I'd say, with a little bit of post travel. Can't wait to take this thing apart, actually. But yeah, here we are. That is the Cream Tactile's Tactility. Now, the reason why I feared this was just a blueberry recolor and reskin is because I really did not like the blueberries, because there was a weird sort of two-stage tactility with it. And what I mean by that is, when I press down on this, even though that if you press it fast enough, it's just one thing, but you can't help but feel there's a second hitch in there. And if I press it very slowly, my finger will come to a stop, and I'll replicate this right now. So this is a lighter spring, of course, as this was the literal cream housing and stem, not stem, but housing, and they just slapped a blueberry stem in there, as per what it was originally. And if I were to just press slowly, it stops right here. So you can see that there's a tactility here, but yeah, there's a second tactility down here. So when I was pressing downward, I can feel this hitch, and I really didn't like that. I know some people did, but for me, it was not my cup of tea. Like, I would gladly have this on an off key, like a print screen, or like I'll fill these in when I don't have keys for scroll lock and like pause or something, but man, I did not like these switches, and especially with the this is a blueberry that was on release, so this is like a launch edition blueberry. So these have not been retooled versus the cream tactiles, which have. As I was informed on the chocolate cream video, you can find right here, someone in the comments did say that the creams did undergo a rework or a retool, so that the housings were a little bit better and the stems didn't fully bottom out. And as it stands, it still goes true with the cream tactiles. So yeah, blueberries, not a fan, and I'm glad that the cream tactiles aren't just a reskin. So, with that being said, let's do a little sound test real quick. I'm going to hold it up to the microphone. This is just a stock sound test. This is in no way, shape, or form definitive. This is just something to just sort of bear in mind if you were to press it with your own hands. Wow, I can hear that ping from here. Yeah, my fingers are already getting tired from pressing this super fast because of that 95-gram bottom out force. Let's try it in a keyboard first and foremost, because the keyboard is kind of the thing that we want to listen to it, you know, sound in, I suppose, because in the end, we're going to be putting this inside a keyboard or some sort of machine that allows us to use these switches to create inputs. So, yeah, why not? Boom. Alright, so here we are with the Hansung TFG art, and I've reduced the keys by 1 in order to free up a slot, which was conveniently the H key. It's smack dab in the middle of the entire keyboard, So my standard tests is always going to be the same thing. I'm going to put a switch in the spot and replace it with a modded switch and do the same tests and rhythms so you can have a back and forth after the sound tests. So, by the way, just by lubing this thing, it's already much improved. The leaf ping is still there because I suppose that's just because of the fact that it's just that tactile. Just for comparison's sake, here is the stock switch. And here is a lubed and filmed switch. The lube is Gazoo's Lube 3G. It is sort of like Tribos's 3203 and 3204. And the film is a Kibo film, which is, to my knowledge, one of the thinnest films on the market, and it's made specifically to film creams. So this is what it sounds like, fully modded. It's quieter, there's no spring ping, there's less friction when I press on it, when I top out and bottom out. So, I suppose this would make for an interesting comparison. So let's just take a stock switch, slap it into the keyboard, and see what it sounds like, and I'll follow up with the modded switch. Alright, so first let's just press it without anything. Alright, I'm going to be using a R1 sort of PBT die sub as the basis keycap for the sound test. So I'm just going to slap it on here and press it again. Same exact patterns as well. Overall, as a stock switch, I'm mixed because the tactility is pretty good. But just by doing this, I'm getting tired. And this is using like my dominant fingers, like my index and my middle finger. I suppose that's kind of the point, right? Like, I'm pretty sure this switch is made for those who just get past the bump and then just kind of go about it. But then again, if you're really ham-fisted, you kind of want a heavy switch anyway. So I suppose that logic doesn't really apply here. But either way, if you want a heavy but good tactility tactile switch, and you like NovelKeys, and the sound signature of creams, then go for this switch. Alright, let's try this. Let's try the lubed version. Oops. So here, again, is a cream tactile. Not broken in yet, but although it's not that scratchy, so maybe it doesn't require as much break-in as usual. It is filmed with a Kibo film. It is also lubed with Lube 3G in the rails, the feet, the spring, and the top housing. I can definitely still hear the sort of leaf ping that's still coming back from the huge tactility, but it's still marginally better. Let's put on a keycap. Yet another Switch that I can see the potential of, and I can see why it would appeal to some people, but it's just not for me. This is a heavier Switch, and I feel like if I were to put an entire keyboard full of these things and type on them, I probably wouldn't like them. But, well, I suppose I can try that now, because this keyboard is hot swap. So, 1 second. Okay. I'm starting to like these switches. They're not too bad. I would definitely not use them over, say, like Duroc Medium Tactiles or whatever, or U4Ts, because they are really, really heavy for me. And even with me just using my like index and middle finger to like type around and press spacebar, like my fingers were starting to get a little cramped up. And keep in mind, my Switch preference is usually around 60 grams, like Alia's 60 gram springs. So if you've ever handled Alia springs before, they're like a medium heaviness, but they're like just right for me because, again, they're on my S80 with the Creamy Yaw switches, which are linear. So, all things considered, I think this is a pretty decent tactile switch, but it's not for me. Like, again, I know some people actually did like the Blueberries quite a lot, and they can sound really good. I'll link a little like sound test right there of my friend who managed to build his Mars 6.5 with some, and they sound really good. I was pleasantly surprised. But the tactility of the Blueberries was a problem for me because of the weird scratchy 2 stage of them, and with these, they're just way too heavy. Alright. Sorry for the weird cut. I realized that I probably should have at least tried these for about 2 hours, and I tried them for 2 hours. I played Genshin with them, and I ran through the hardest part in the game, which is Abyss Floor 12, along with just going above the overworld. Holy shit, this is really bright. Let me disconnect that. Anyway, I was trying to go around in the overworld picking up stuff, and let me just tell you something. These are not made for gaming. Like, it was fine when I was typing like this and using my entire hand to do this, whatever, because most people do this when they type, right? They move their hands. But when it comes to actually using them when gaming, when you're stationary, and you're putting more stress on your fingers by themselves to press the buttons and such, yeah, not a good idea. I'll just tell you that straight up right now. If you're looking to use these to game, I don't think that's a good idea. I already find T1s like basically like the height of the tactility in which that I find acceptable for playing. So when it comes to the Cream Tactiles, I highly do not recommend them for gaming, unless if you're one of those insanity boys that use heavy or extreme BKE domes in your Topper boards, in which, go right ahead, man. You probably have anvils for fingers. But Conclusive Thoughts, I use them more. Like, I deck them out more. You can see me removing the switches and such and putting back in the box pinks of this TFG art. And, well, I have to say, like I say again, I think they being NovelKeys, I think NovelKeys made yet another niche switch. I'm not going to say it's bad, right? I don't think it's in my place to say it is a bad switch, because I'm personally under the impression that this hobby is one of the most subjective out there. But in terms of what I have experienced in my, 4 years now? 4 years in the mechanical keyboard hobby, and growing my collection of switches and using them from time to time, in all the tactile switches I've used, they remind me of the Blueberry switch, which is not a good thing. because the inherent flaw with cream tactiles and any tactiles made in cream housings in general that haven't been fully like broken into the point of extreme smoothness and maybe on the verge of breaking in or just fresh out of the box is that they're not only sort of against you because of the heavy weight, which by the way I think there's like launch creams or launch edition creams that have like a Gateron yellow spring weight, which might be better, but in terms of the cream tactiles, which is the subject of this video, I really wasn't a fan of them because I would rather use something else that is easier for me to just passively type and not focus a lot of my attention on typing. I feel like a lot of people who use like Holy Pandas, U4Ts, and for me, I personally like T1s. I also do like Duroc medium tactiles. I feel like for those people, like these are a no-go, because if you're looking for something that is to perhaps replicate Zeal V1s, I already said that Duroc medium tactiles are like the best replacement in my opinion. But regardless of what I'm going to be saying about the cream tactiles, whatever your preference is, if your preference lies anywhere like Holy Panda or below, then don't get these, because in my opinion, for those people that are just like looking for a good medium heavy weight or just medium weighted tactile, these are not for you, because like I said again in the beginning of the video, these motherfuckers have a 95 gram bottom mount. You are smashing this thing. I feel like you're going to be at a keyboard meetup and like type on all keyboards and would still end up like less tired from typing on everyone's keyboards compared to just using these for gaming. If you have a heavy-handed like typing technique and you're over here like doing this, maybe like you probably have a better time. Or maybe you're like over here with you're standing here like 6'9" and you're over here like hunched over your desk and like just slamming your fingers into the goddamn keyboard. It's not my place to say, but if that's you, then go for it, my guy. That's all you. However, I cannot take away from its tactility. The tactility is very high, and to those that are daring to put a very, very light spring into these and putting them into keyboards, hey man, go for it. But I have a feeling that if you put the light springs inside these cream tactiles, they're gonna have trouble returning, especially on like the stabilized keys such as the spacebar and whatnot. I've had it happen before, and I highly doubt it won't happen again. So tread with caution if you're willing to buy these, because yet again, I think these are very new switches, and if you have the money and disposable income to buy a 36 pack of these and fill out your alphas with them, or you perhaps some of your modifiers, go for it. Like, I don't think it's a bad switch, but I think in terms of filling that niche, there's a lot less people that want this niche compared to those that do. So, like I said, checklist yourself. Are you a heavy typist? Are you someone that doesn't mind slamming your fingers into the keyboard? Or perhaps you're such a goddamn giant that you're Paul Bunyan and require some goddamn force into forcing your keys down on your keyboard? And do you just like heavy switches in general? Then go right ahead. That's your thing. But for me, oh my goodness. Condom first. God. Anyway, that's enough out of me. I hope this video was informative, and if anything, I might make a follow-up video in a month or so when I perhaps have a few switches that are breaking in. Like I put like some switches in like the E and R, or perhaps like the space bar, some switches to break them in or whatnot, and then make a little follow-up video. But until then, this is my first impressions of the NovelKeys Cream Tactiles. I hope this answers some questions, and I also hope that this was informative in helping you making a purchase decision. Alright, that's it. Thank you so much, and I'm glad to be back.